I'm William Jacobs. Welcome to the Morning Dove Films podcast. Hello, everyone. For this first podcast episode, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is William Jacobs. I'm the filmmaker and founder behind Morning Dove Films. I grew up with cinema. When I was 7 years old, I began making stop-motion animation films. And as a teenager, I had thought cinema could only be entertainment. I wanted to move to Hollywood. I wanted to become a blockbuster director akin to Christopher Nolan. And then when I was approaching my 20s, I encountered the works of Andrei Tarkovsky, Ingmar Bergman, Robert Bresson, Carl Theodor Dreyer, which showed me that cinema can be a high art, that it could rise above entertainment and elevate the soul. I graduated with an associate's in the fine arts in 2019 and worked as a dental technician for a couple of years and decided to return to school to earn my undergraduate degree in teaching. So that's what I'm currently doing at this juncture as I'm making my debut feature film entitled Poet in a Modern World. I don't have any desire to make commercial cinema. I don't have a thirst for a career. Rather, what I care about is creating films with purity and sincerity and to further explore what cinema could be. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Morning Dove Films is an independent production company that I founded in 2018 as an effort to create alternative cinema in the Midwest. This company has not made any money whatsoever. This first production has been chiefly funded out of my own pocket, with 20% of the funds necessary to create half the production raised. Donations have helped propel Poet in a Modern World forward, but I am using the money that I made as a dental technician to bring the project to fruition. For those of you that have heard nothing of Poet in a Modern World, it's the very first release under Morning Dove Films, a full-length feature film shot on 16mm film. It's a story following a grieving middle-aged art instructor and his disoriented young pupil as they attempt to navigate the collapse of our present culture. Both of them have lost hope and have retreated into the realm of their imagination and memories. It's a story about family, the necessity of tradition, and choosing beauty in a world defying it. As I shared earlier, half of this project has been photographed. You can view most of the scenes we have filmed on YouTube. I've released them independently as clips, and you can learn more about this project on the Morning Dove Films website. I haven't developed a structure for this podcast series, so you will have to excuse the errors I make along the way. I have some little material to share with you to begin with in these first few episodes. What I foresee is interviewing other filmmakers, sharing some essays that I've written about cinema, and providing production updates for Poet in a Modern World. I have an audio recording of a lecture I gave in 2022 at Illinois Central College's Cube Gallery, in which I talk about the process of 16mm filmmaking. This exhibition was for the proof of concept of Poet in a Modern World, entitled A Moment is Enough. And the actor portraying Shane, Wes Brooks, was in attendance and decided to chime in here and there, sharing some anecdotes. This can also be found on YouTube, along with a radio interview from the same year.
Thank you very much. I want to thank ICC, first of all, for allowing me to be here, allowing me to fill in this space with all of these strange foreign objects, things that you'll learn about today. I want to thank Chris Gauthier, the gallery director, he has such a vision for this room. He wants to revivify it, and he has a lot of wonderful plans. And so this is the beginning of what the Cube Gallery could be. Today we're featuring filmmaking, and there will be other things that Chris will be featuring, such as the maker space. That's something that we're talking about here in Peoria. It's quite exciting to know that there are great things happening here at ICC and great things happening in this gallery. So my name is William Jacobs. I'm a local filmmaker. I grew up in Peoria. I began making films, to answer your question, when I was 7. I had a stop-motion animation kit that Lego had made that worked with Windows 98. So I had this old boxy computer that used floppy disks, and my parents were gracious enough to allow me to set up a table in the basement where I can have this Lego city or this Lego set and dream and manipulate the limbs of these little figures and take photographs frame by frame where you simulate motion. And so that was my introduction to filmmaking. I've been a self-taught filmmaker. It's been a journey. I've had this dream to work with this old medium, relatively old medium. It's not exactly old. It's still very relevant and used in the industry today. You can go on Kodak's website and you can see a list of all of these productions still using film. Arguably, it stands the test of time. It can be scanned indefinitely. And so I've entered 16 millimeter film just recently, 2 years ago. I acquired a camera, not this camera exactly, but this is a 16 millimeter camera. With the help of the Peoria community, I was able to raise some funds to acquire this, to make this short film, which I'll be talking about here in a moment. My reason for transitioning to the 16 millimeter format is because of the process. I think we have lost some of the traditions of cinema. The traditions are there to unite the cast and crew and to also establish certain principles within the creation of a film. Film, unlike digital, is extremely fragile as a format. It's susceptible to damage by just handling it with your fingers, touching it. You can mar the footage that way. Of course, it's light sensitive, so you have to transport the film in these light, tight film canisters, and you have to load film magazines in dark bags. And so you're working mostly blind, and you cannot see the final image that you create until after it's gone through development. And there's a lot of risk involved. It's dangerous, but it requires faith in your knowledge, your competence, faith in your cast and crew, faith in the project, and trusting that things will come to fruition because you've prepared as much as you can prepare for a film to tell this particular story. I'm more interested in the asceticism of 16 millimeter filmmaking than the aesthetics. There's a resurgence, and I think it's because there's this need amongst youth to have consequences while creating a project. With digital, you can film indefinitely. If you make a mistake, you can easily press record again. So there's this indolence that has arisen out of digital filmmaking. Both are valid mediums. I'm not saying one is superior over the other. So behind me is a mock film set from this short film. And this project that we shot is called A Moment Is Enough. It's an excerpt of a feature film I like to make here in Peoria, entitled Poet in a Modern World. There are brochures here. You can read a little bit more about the story. I'll try to be succinct as possible. The story follows a disoriented young student who develops a mentorship with his instructor who teaches an art class, and this instructor is having a difficult time trying to communicate what beauty is, this ideal we have turned away from, and we have taken off of the pedestal and then replaced with a question mark. And so this art instructor is trying to navigate through the modern world along with his student, and both of them come together and help each other find resolve to discover what real hope is in an age of moral decay and political upheaval. Ultimately, they discover there's something beyond politics. There's something beyond this world that we ought to be striving after. This excerpt, A Moment Is Enough, takes place during the middle of the story, and it follows the young student who is wandering around alone in his home, and he conjures this past muse of his with his imagination. And the fantasy begins with her turning on this projector he has in his room, which plays this short film that he made on film. And then they enter this dialogue, and that can be viewed on the Morning Dove Films website if you're curious about that. You can see what 16 millimeter film looks like. There's some little footage presented on this screen here showing what we shot. So the feature film will begin production this winter. We raised some funds. I had an Indiegogo fundraiser, and we were able to raise $800, which enables us to shoot a few scenes this winter. And I'll end here and open the floor for questions. I don't always storyboard, but with this particular project, given that we're using film, I needed to know exactly the shots I wanted to capture. So that was very helpful to have those storyboards there and to communicate your vision to other people too. And that's a very difficult thing. And one of the plights that filmmakers face is communicating the vision. You have a dream, you dream it up, you have these images in your head, but other people are not in your head. They cannot see what you're seeing. They cannot be as passionate for these images that you have dreamed up as much as you are. So that's one of the tasks, one of the toilsome tasks is to try to communicate that vision to such a potent degree that you can lead people into bringing that to fruition. The beauty about 16 millimeter filmmaking is, in contrast with digital filmmaking, is that it encourages you to embrace mistakes. We had a lot of technical problems that arose on set. Things broke down. I had a snow machine that failed and that was rigged outside of this gable door. And I was frustrated, but then I realized I'm going to humble myself. I'm going to allow this project to be what it wants to be. Allow myself to be informed. And with digital filmmaking, you're more recalcitrant and less willing to listen to the voice of your project that's trying to direct you. Because you can quickly rectify mistakes, shooting isn't as expensive. With celluloid filmmaking, you can't really afford mistakes, but when they do happen, you're more comforted by them. Then you come to realize it makes the film better. It introduced something that I never would have conjured up in my head. You're in collaboration with some external force, and I don't want to get into the metaphysics of that, but 16 millimeter filmmaking certainly opens the door to new possibilities. Again, I don't believe any medium is superior than the other, but I'm blathering on now. So are there any other questions, sir? Wes, would you have anything to contribute? Because you were part of the project. He was the actor.
Yeah, it was a marvelous experience. It was amazing what feat that this one man assembling all of this and putting it together with the help of dedicated people. It was a very intense experience to step into the role and under the constraints of the medium, the preference of the medium. Will did an outstanding job directing it. And one thing that talking about the differences between digital and film, it was very, for me as a performer, it was very grounding to be working on film because there were no monitors, there was no, I did a film earlier this summer and it was very, very digital with all the cables and the monitors and it just felt more synthetic, it felt more, but his project, this project, it felt more grounded, it felt more terrestrial, more, that there was flesh and blood in it. And we couldn't just watch the footage back after we took it, we just had to do a couple of takes and then trust the moment. The film is called A Moment Is Enough, and you can view it online. You can grab its materials and such, but that A Moment Is Enough, the film is made up of moments that, where we had to be disciplined and Will really guided us for it to be what it needed to be to happen. There's a lot I could say about it, but it was a real miracle that came together because technology was, the camera was from the mid-1970s, and a lot more could have gone wrong and did go wrong. And so that's a testament to God and to Will's expertise and tenacity, as well as the other members of the crew who brought it to life. And you could hear another thing about the filming, you could hear the sound of the camera during the filming. You hear that sound play the moment. It was a very magical, kind of eerie experience.
One last question.
Yeah.
You keep making this popular statement.
Yeah.
It is asceticism, not aesthetics.
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
Yeah. Okay.
You were like,
yeah.
you
yeah.
can argue about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I believe that an artist has to take on responsibility. They have to be responsible for what they're creating, because art shapes our world. It shapes our culture, and we have to make sure that we are in alignment, that we are creating virtuously, and understanding that we are going to be sharing something with the world, and it ought to be something worthwhile, and it ought to be something that will edify people and be fruitful to help people. That's my particular understanding of art. That could be a point of contention. However, I think your environment as an artist has tremendous influence over what you're creating. I'm someone who wants to be disciplined, who wants limitations, because once we take away those limitations, anything is possible, and then if anything is possible, nothing is. And we can easily lose ourselves if we don't have some sort of framework to operate within. I need 16 millimeter filmmaking because it provides a rigid framework. I like to have a stable ground to stand on when I'm creating. I don't want anything that's going to shift over time. And I don't want anything that allows me to slip into indolence either. So regarding asceticism, considering the fragility of film, which is a reflection of our own fragility as human beings, there is something sacred about that process of creating with this particular format, because you're holding something very vulnerable in your hands. It's much like holding a child in your hands. And you want to make sure that you raise this child properly and that you do your utmost to access the potential in this being, in this thing, in this film, in this art, and to manifest that. I want those conditions to enjoin me to discipline myself and to enjoin others. And I think that's really what unifies people, the restrictions and the boundaries, and it keeps us from wandering astray, that we have something we can always go back to rely on. And for me, it's that tradition of 16 millimeter film. It's that sound of the film running through the camera. Everybody is hearing that. That's one of the unifying forces. That's held in mind. Oh, there is something very vulnerable occurring right now. I need to make sure that I'm giving my best and that I'm helping foster this project. So with digital filmmaking, the camera is not conscious in people's minds. And people can forget that there is a camera, that there is some miraculous event occurring where the light enters this lens and hits this sensor and it generates a 0101 code, which creates this image. And, that isn't really in mind when you're working with the digital format. But I digress. I will say this. Da Vinci thought that the eye was the most sacred part of the body, because that's where the universe is one point. And we're working with a lens that operates like our eye, and we are taking the universe and we're putting it into one frame, multiple frames, 24 frames per second. We're creating these moments, and we're trying to redeem time with those moments to show people something worthwhile, something beautiful, something that will help people to endure whatever suffering they're enduring, to help them transfigure their own life. But I'll stop there. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
So there you have it. I stammered through that lecture. For those of you that endured patiently, thank you. Hopefully, it was of some fruit to you. I'm still trying to discover what cinema is, and I'm developing my perspective and approach. Like I said earlier, I may be releasing some essays that I've written about cinema. I don't know if I have the reputation yet or the credibility to talk about these things. If you want to help Morning Dove Films, you can go to the Morning Dove Films website, morningdovefilms.com. There is a page to contribute to our latest production, in this case, Poet in a Modern World. Any amount is appreciated. You will receive special credit on the film. You can also subscribe to the Morning Dove Films YouTube channel. We also have a Vimeo channel too, if that interests you. A film is uselessly floating around if it doesn't have an audience. So your viewership is greatly cherished. Thank you for listening to this first podcast episode. If you have suggestions or comments, you can send them to info@morningdovefilms.com. We don't take unsolicited offers or material, so please make sure that you are only giving a suggestion or a remark. God bless you.